their numbers work. But hi, I'm Hannah. And I have henna on my arm today, which is exciting. My friends Bryar and Von'Erik, who are both members of the 44.4 Collective, um, are here in my apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts. And we are talking today about questing in kindness. I really believe I love the word questing because it's also related to questions. And this idea of we're on a quest, we're journeying together. It's very compelling to me as a human and as a teacher. Bryar is a teacher, and she's going to come join me in a second. We're all still sipping our coffee from Wicked Cafe down the street. We loved the process of Sarah, who put this henna on my arm. We loved getting to all sit on the porch outside the cafe while she was putting it on my arm. And it made me kind of think, gosh, if this had been part of school for me, that we were all giving each other cool artisanal experiences from other countries, that would have been so fun. Like henna at middle school would have been really fun. Bryar, come here. Because you're a middle school teacher. We both have a lot of experience working with adolescents. When I say questing in kindness, what does that mean to you?
I think in the context of adolescence, that is a time of a lot of questioning, and if that isn't happening against a backdrop of kindness, it can be a really, really rough time.
Mm-hmm. I love middle schoolers, and I also know that when people go through a major life transition in adulthood, it tends to bring up some wounds and bring us into a place that is like adolescence again. Is that something that resonates for you as someone who is, no longer an adolescent, but has gone through your own stuff?
Yeah, and I who knows for sure, but I suspect one of the reasons that could be true is just developmentally, besides the age 0 to 3, that's just a period of so much rapid development and a period of time where a period of time known as specialization, where literally at the neural level we are positioning our brain to be really good at certain things and to really like lean into who we really are. So I think when we have experiences in adulthood that put that into question, it makes a lot of sense to me that might cast us back into that space of that gooey space of development, and who am I really, and what do I have to offer the world?
I love the way you used the word gooey.
It's gooey.
It's gooey. Von'Erik, do you mind closing the window? My window's a little hard to close, and I'm getting distracted by traffic outside. Thank you so much. Von'Erik, do you wanna pop over and get into this conversation around questing in kindness? What we're also kind of trying to get into is the theme for the summer on Monday Morning Views, which is going to be around education, being lifelong learners, creating a wiser world together, whatever that means. So it feels a little bit like a slumber party, which it wasn't a slumber party here last night. Well, technically it was with me and Bryar. But I like that we're all on my couch / bed here in this little living room space. Von'Erik, what does questing in kindness mean to you?
Quest, like a video game quest, like a quest. Questing in kindness. I see trials and tribulations when I hear that. Um, because kindness is something that is natural.
Can I pop you into the center of the
Oh,
I'm like, here, scooch closer to Bryar.
sorry.
It's okay.
I personally think that it's just a lot of trials and tribulations because not everybody deserves kindness, or kindness is not. There's a space where kindness can bring about negativity. I think that's the way to say it. And being aware of that, I think, is the quest.
Now that's really interesting because I kind of function on a baseline of be kind in all circumstances, and it has made me vulnerable in a number of situations in my life. Um, I'm curious because I'd like to see a wiser and kinder world. What are the ways in which we teach children, but also ourselves, to protect our energy while also bringing greater kindness or compassion, at least, into the world? What is your take on that?
You want to go?
Go for it.
Um, I think the first step is definitely awareness. If I had students, I would teach them the different layers of awarenesses when it comes to our senses, and then have them be able to allocate the rules to those awarenesses in terms of this different types of spaces or ecosystems that are naturally in place, and then also the types of entities that you, both human and non-human, that you would interact with to try to maximize the opportunities that are available. um, and by being able to identify, you're able to discern.
So this is I I want to pull out two key points to what you're talking about. Or to what you just said, because you gave us a lot of good. Um, and I think these are aspects that are important at many phases of development. The first key word in my mind is awareness and training in awareness. Um, a second is discernment. And those two pieces, greater awareness and greater discernment, those pieces, I think in any culture, I'd be interested in seeing like those words in many languages. I think they are key to growth and lifelong learning. Bryar, what's your take?
Well, I don't. I already forgot your question because I'm just thinking about the relationship. Something that you said, Ron, just made me think about the relationship between kindness and realness, and how we often kind of sacrifice realness and authenticity in the name of niceness. I would call it being nice, and how that keeps us at the surface of our human experience rather than helping young people develop the skills to navigate the complexity of a real human experience. And I think that skills like awareness and discernment are what might allow somebody to exist more authentically. And maybe there is kindness that can emerge from that, but it does seem like a very different type of kindness that would emerge rather than we've been talking a bit about the narratives that we are given. And I think we're often given the narrative that, of kindness or niceness to all people. So I think without question. So I think maybe part of the quest is what does that look like um, in an authentic way or as an authentic practice. And I think it would include things like awareness and discernment.
So I think this concept of authenticity and realness, also like if we could have like a like a holy grail of what we what we are training in,
Mm.
and what we're trying to offer people while their brains are developing
Mm.
most intensely, which, as you said, Briar, like early childhood and then adolescence comes again. What's wonderful about what we understand from neuroscience lately is that the brain is forever elastic until the end of our lives. And so, we have quite the industry of people who are using technology to like train the brain in 1,000 ways. But we already had other technologies too that didn't involve our phones or anything. um, Lots of ways to keep the mind active, lots of ways to keep learning, and once you stop learning you tend to decline in all metrics of health. But authenticity, maybe a better word than kindness is compassion, or that's something that needs more teasing out, I think. um
Uh, if I may,
Please,
this
yeah.
is something that we were also talking about earlier at the cafe. When there's a natural rule. I want to explain two things here. First is the natural rule, and then kind of this pattern in terms of our human experience. So the first natural rule is that whenever humans occupy a space, there's all, or it's not even, I would just say it's a systemic thing. Like any system, there's going to be a system that wants to devour another system in order to survive. Like that's just like this natural rule. You see it everywhere, from atoms to like galaxies. All right, so it's like that's the first rule, and then the second rule is that there's always like a builder and a there's someone to build the construct of the system, and then there's always someone to maintain and balance the system. All right, determines what stays there, what needs to be put to the side, and then and that's just a universal pattern. So these two patterns, what it has to do with this is like there's always this, you have to know where, like what space you're operating in order to distribute the kindness, because if you don't, if you're not careful, then that kindness can be used against you,
Mm.
and for the sake of survival. And that's the real game here. The game is survival. There's two ways to do it, and that's where those two energies come in. There's the energy that builds, which means you got to use resources, and then there's the energy to maintain, which balances those resources, I guess. So, and there's always a struggle between the two of that, because you have to consume more resources to build. You have to use less resources to balance. So it's something. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
I mean, it does. And also, like, there are certain parts of it that I have to call into question because, in some ways, I'm like, I'm going to get in between both of you and get cozy because these are friends that I love to hug. Um, when people start getting into the language of, like, there's when people start getting into languaging that feels forceful and violent, to me, I'm very sensitive to the language we use. So, um, what is true is that we're in, like, as a species and on this planet in the earth reality, we're in a process of continual unfolding in which there is both destruction and construction. I call into question anyone who tells me humans are innately going to destroy each other. I actually don't think that's an innate quality, that all humans everywhere have always been violent, cruel, and torture each other. Like, and I know that's not what you said.
No.
But um, when we're using words and narrative, and when we are choosing books for children to read, when we are offering possibility, one of the most essential things I think is to bring us all into like a shared possibility mindset of what is possible. How do we keep shifting and growing and nurturing, but also not nurturing because we want to be nice and just, everyone smiles like we're on a cute little cartoon all day long. But it's an energy of, like, the quest is not for the sake of maintaining something that is actually harming some people.
Mm.
The quest is about how do we together move in the direction of something that is exciting but also different.
That's interesting. I took it your first statement about systems ability or intent to kind of consume other systems at the level of atom to galaxy as
Mhm.
actually a pretty neutral statement.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that really interesting because I think that there is a way, and you reflected it back to me earlier, right? Like that we exist on a binary, good people and bad people, and
There's a spectrum in between.
well, of course, there's a spectrum, but I also just appreciate that, like, um, there can be a neutral reality in which it's not a bad aspect of human existence that we would have a propensity to seek power or control in the way that you're talking about in terms of like I'm thinking about cells infecting a body. Like that's not ill intent. That is a bacteria doing exactly what it's supposed to, or whatever it might
It's a
be.
function of
It's a
survival.
function, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that that is just like a helpful framing. That is a helpful framing because it's a more neutral, like a neutral way of looking at human existence, and that someone's propensity to do that might be more reflective of the conditions around them or the system that other people are maintaining or something like that, rather than just categorizing people um, who seek that as like all the way bad people.
No,
Yeah, it doesn't seem useful. So
it,
I kind of
I
I,
was
I hear what both of you are saying, and I appreciate it.
I see the game of survival, and then I see different ways you can survive. You can survive by building up your dependency on yourself and less on external systems, or you can build the wherewithal to have the ability to use other systems to survive.
Mm.
And they're not, I don't have any preference on which one. It's the intent that we have it with the ability of free choice as humans that is a reason why we need to analyze kindness in a little deeper way,
Okay.
because kindness is called different things in different
Mhm.
circles when you get certain outcomes,
Yeah,
from
kindness.
bribery
Yeah,
to betrayal.
yeah, kindness can be
So
maintaining that system
yeah,
that's
Exactly.
destroying other people.
Exactly. I mean,
exactly.
kind like that, like of a kind. It's about kinship and expectation, that actual meaning of the word.
Mhm.
There is something in your back pocket that is poking my thigh or my leg right now. I'm like, can we move that? Just let it.
I want to comment. I think that I try to work with adolescents to do both, to both develop their own like internal sense of self and the resources that they have within themselves. We're talking about like the concept of home at some point, and what does it mean for a teenager to feel at home in themselves.
Mhm.
But then also, I want them to develop a sense of like purpose in the world and some skills to do exactly what you're both saying about rebuilding systems or shifting systems, like that they can see themselves as deeply intertwined with the world around them in a generative way, where they don't just have to passively accept the world that they exist in. There is capacity for reciprocity, and and that they have those resources within themselves,
Mm.
knowing that the systems will not be perfect and will not serve all of my students in the same ways. I think both of those are really important.
Yeah. I
Cost of operations
Mm.
matters in a system.
Mm.
well,
If the cost is too high, there's usually malintent at the source of it and
Mm.
or overabundance,
Mm.
which in another shade or perspective can just be seen as greedy
Mm.
or like a negative thing.
Mhm.
You know, to the people who have overabundance, that's their cushion, and
Mhm.
they're oversatisfied, but they're satisfied to the point where they don't have to worry.
Mhm.
And anybody who's working would want a system like that,
Mhm.
because it's like you don't have you're dependent upon all the work that is underneath you, so you don't have to worry.
Mm.
But to a different shade, that could just be you're taking advantage of a whole bunch of people. You know,
I think
and it can be gray. That's the point. If you don't have the full picture,
Mm.
so knowing the different layers of that picture, I think, are important.
I want
But
to,
yeah, sorry.
no, it's okay. I want to focus us as we get into the last 10 minutes of this like live conversation um around some central questions that might be interesting for someone who watches this later to think about,
Mm.
Hmm.
because I'm going to create a Google Doc probably today because I think I have a little time for this, but it'll be like it'll come under like the description of Monday Morning Muse, and I'll take it off at the end of the summer, and we'll have conversations that are partly with educators or people who have real thoughts around like the learning experience and like brain development. Like there's a lot of different people who are in educational spaces who might not necessarily say I'm a teacher.
Mhm.
One thing that I think is a fun way to get anybody in the world to think a little more deeply about learning, growing, kindness is to ask the question, what is something you wish you had learned or were learning in school that you have to learn outside of it instead? What is something you wish you were like? What is something that should be a thing that is offered in school?
Yeah, I went and became the teacher that taught that.
Me too.
Yeah, I didn't
That's the mission of every teacher.
yeah, well,
Mm.
I didn't have the opportunity. I went to high school in North Carolina. I didn't have a health class that was robust at all. It was taught by my English teacher. It was like maybe once a week. It was abstinence only. It was really disempowering, and um, that wasn't anybody's fault individually. It was a product of the system that we were in, and so I really feel so grateful that just all of the threads of my life opened up an opportunity for me to develop a health curriculum that could speak to a lot of that and that was receptive to what students wanted to learn. So I added in a whole chunk this year on financial literacy because they came to me and said, this is important. We haven't learned about this. We need to learn about it.
Mhm.
I'm getting a job at Market Basket and I don't even know anything about taxes. For me, though, it was what is what are the tenets of a healthy relationship? What does that mean? What might that feel like? And I think that that would have been so helpful to be able to bring into my like late adolescence and early adulthood when those things were becoming really relevant for me and I had to learn through lived experience and the stories of the people around me. And I'm grateful for what I learned, but I feel like I had to step in the mud a lot
Mhm.
in order to learn that. And I'm not trying to take away experiential learning from my students; they still deserve to have that. But if I can create a dialogue, a space for dialogue where they are beginning to build awareness of themselves, their bodies, what feels good, what their gut reaction is to things, how they might break up with somebody if and when that was the right thing for them to do, um, I think it better prepares them for the discernment process when they are entering into that. So I feel really, really grateful that I got the opportunity, have had the opportunity to live out some of that.
Mm, yeah. Do you have a particular topic that you think would have been helpful to have learned about at some point in school, Leonard?
You know, it's funny. You say what you said about your experience. I feel like for me, I would, because is this for all ages or this K through
This
12?
this is just a general question. So first thought, best thought.
I think everyone should take a course called Reality Check. And inside this course of Reality Check, they are first told that everything is operated in systems of lies for the sake of people to benefit from. And I think that is a real thing. that should be communicated, because then you have a path of traversal in terms of this main rule set. Because in our society of America, that is our game.
In the book I just told you about, which Finding the Magic in Middle School, there's a subtitle, but it's been a really good read. He talks about this and talks about how we can work with adolescents to see the game of reality. The game of college admissions isn't about how smart you are how worthy you are. It is about, how well you take an ACT or SAT test, and that's a game that you can learn the rules of and learn how to play it.
Yeah.
And that mentality, I think, can be really useful for the art of survival.
Well, it's where do you want to survive in life? And I say that would be the second like aspect of this class. Where do you want your finish line to be? Stephen Covey talks about beginning with the end in mind.
And Maya talks about thriving, not just
Surviving.
surviving,
yeah.
right?
So, but there also needs to come to the realization, and Thanos talks a lot about this in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's only so many resources, so not everyone can get to that level of thriving, to that state of everyone wanting to live at that level. So we have to complex the game. We have to make it more difficult.
This is where I have to bring in the incredible songwriter Sia, who loves cheap thrills. Those of us who are willing to be joyful and find ways that minimize our impact on the planet and on resources. Like, I think actually everyone could thrive if some of those who are in the hoarding or greed must have comfort at all times, like the right to comfort myth, that's not like nobody has the right to be comfortable all the time. That's not real. But that's me getting a little, on my soapbox. I want to kind of start to synthesize some pieces here.
Great.
One is that we've offered some really good resources already in terms of books that might be interesting to read or maybe included in a curriculum that would be good for adults or children. One is the work of Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Successful People, as well as some other books. You referenced Covey. Tell us the author of
Chris Blaine, I think.
Okay. How do you spell Chris?
CHRIS, and then I believe it's BLANE. I can check right now.
Yeah, Finding the Magic in Middle School. I think that could be interesting for anybody who has a middle schooler, maybe even some middle schoolers who want to understand what's going on for them a little more. And certainly teachers or people who just, that's a tricky age, the middle school age, from a lot of perspectives.
Blame with an M. BLAME.
Okay, beautiful. Balme.
Thank you.
Balm. Chris Balm. Balme.
That's my learning disability.
So I also talked about Sia, and if you don't know the musician, please look her up. And we talked about Maya Angelou briefly. We've talked about a lot of great writers today. I also want to name something that has been kind of saturating this conversation, which is building a tolerance for ambiguity and the fact that a lot of things can be true all at once.
I think another thing that should be taught in this class is the concept of dimensional fractalization and understanding that several things can be true at one time. Okay. And false and undefined. But go ahead.
No, this is good. So,
because I see the world in like a kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
So it's like.
Well, I like the idea of reality check as like a curriculum we're going to build in conversation on Monday Morning Muse over the course of the summer. And because I have a lot of thoughts kind of kaleidoscopically about like what might be involved. But I think one of the most important things, since you talked about learning by experience, and we all are very experiential embodied people who have, brilliance and neurodivergence and a lot of things we all love. The element of choice, agency, and allowing people themselves at any age to have a sense of agency and choicefulness, that matters immensely. So it's a complex matter to build a course, but I love the idea that in theory we're going to kind of create something that would be like the curriculum from the perspective of anyone who engages in this conversation over the course of the summer. And I really like the title reality check as a as an organizing title for this is the class. So a lot came out in this conversation. I do not want to have the final word. I want to give each of you a chance to say a sentence or two to kind of wrap up this initial, this beginning to the dive that will be Monday Morning Muse until we get to probably the second week in September.
I'm feeling pretty complete. Thanks for the opportunity.
I like leaving things with a challenge. So, whatever it is you could think of, it could be the smallest thing to the biggest thing. Use the W questions, like what, when, where, why, about 10 times, and you'll always discover something new. um, it's not just in terms of the object that you are resonating on, but in the system in which it resides. Or I would even say the systems. So that's my challenge.
Beautiful.
Because that's a constant like thing that
Absolutely.
musicians go through.
Mm.
So, you know, and I think that is because music is a universal language as opposed to being a perspective, like it's a higher class of a language like math is, or even higher than that
Or
is logic.
dance.
So,
I'm glad that we're
well,
kind of coming
that's
back to
movement,
move.
and that's but ultimately all of it is under change, and they're all systems of change. So
I said I didn't want to have the last word. So much came out there that is delightful. I am gonna have to like listen to this again and like take some notes because I think this gave so much rich material that the three of us together that we'll keep pulling threads back. And if either of you want to be back at any point over the course of the summer, you know, you'll have access to the Google Doc.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, bye. Do you want to press end? You're close.